Welcome back to the Hurry Up Offense. 5 minutes of fantasy football news and advice. I am Smokey Rameriz, your fantasy football pro. Let's go. Today's topic is, which analyst should I listen to? But first, let's get into the news. Dolphins and Steelers, oh my. Davante Parker and Jakeem Grant are both sidelines at Dolphins practice right now. But, however, Davante Parker almost played last week. It looked like he was going to until they made the decision not. So, I would assume that Parker has a better chance of playing this week. And what should be a decent game, Dolphins are doing well. I would put him in your lineup if he's back. Mike Gosicki is in almost the same situation. It looked like he had a possibility of playing last week against the Patriots, and obviously not. So at this point, he's looking like he's on track to come back. However, though, he is limited, so you're going to have to monitor that and see if he gets in a full practice before the end of the week, indicating that he will be ready to go for the game against the Raiders. James Conner is back to being a full go at Steelers practice, so this probably is indicating that he will play this week. But I am not confident at all in this Steelers offense at this point. Almost every piece seems to be a letdown to me over the past few games. So I'm really scared of James Conner, and I'm really scared of anyone on the Steelers offense at this time. Maybe you could play Deontay at this point if you're really desperate, but I wouldn't be excited about it. And you definitely can't play Eric Ebron because he is out in the concussion protocol. He took a really bad hit in that Monday night game. It looked horrible. He gave you a goose because of it. So don't look for him to be out there either. In a bit of good news though, Miles Gaskin is looking like he's going to be back for the Dolphins this week. He is off the COVID list, and the exact opposite of the Steelers. I am excited to play Dolphins at this point. This is looking up for the Dolphins, and definitely Miles Gaskin, because I love the Dolphins' run game this season, and I definitely want a part of it. Tyreek Hill is missing practice this week because of his hamstring pull. Looks kind of iffy right now for Tyreek, but if he is out, I'm loading up in DFS on Mecole Hardman. And last but not least this week, Antonio Gibson is now logging limited practices with his turf toe situation. And we really want him to come back because Antonio Gibson could be a league winner for you in your championship week this week. So if he's out playing and you are not completely stacked at running back, Antonio is your man to go get you a championship. That's it for the news this week. Let's get into the game theory portion of the show, and right now I want to call out some analysts in not only the fantasy industry, but also the NFL analysts and a former player. ESPN's Dominic Foxworth has criticized Josh Allen from the get-go, and at this point, he can no longer say anything bad about Josh Allen's play, so now he turns to criticizing Josh Allen's fans. Bruh, be professional. Admit that you were wrong and move on. I also want to call out the RotoWire podcast, because I haven't checked them out a ton this season, but the times I have, I believe every single time they have mentioned their dislike for Josh Allen. How he's never going to really make it in the NFL. He's not for real. Every time he has a good game, it seems that they just play that off as an anomaly, one good game. Listen, Josh Allen is in the MVP hunt. And if you didn't call it, you didn't call it. That's fine. Be professional and move on. You don't have to keep criticizing this man because you have a bad take. You guys are so stuck in the numbers that you can't see when cycles and trends are happening. Avoid the take lock, bruh. Don't get caught up so much in your hot take that you can't even see, or you're just trying to deny when something is happening right in front of your eyes. Sometimes you just have to admit that you are wrong and move on. on. I was listening to the fantasy footballers, which I like the fantasy footballers. Those guys are great. They're usually accurate and they're very funny to boot. Love those guys. But they had mentioned at some point this week the trajectory that Josh Allen is on, and they said, who could have seen this coming? Well, guess what? I saw this coming. Why? Because I study the cycles and trends. I don't overload and get caught up in the numbers and stick to the numbers, because numbers are not always predictive of the future. Guess what is? The cycles and trends. That's going to happen more times than not. So you have to study those to get a firm grip on fantasy football. Now, I'm not dissing the fantasy footballers because I know these guys are really good at what they do, but they are the ones that made me think of this topic. Now, I'm saying all that to say this. I am not a Josh Allen homer. My favorite team is the Falcons. I do like the Bills, and I do like Josh Allen as a football player. But I am just saying that I pointed this out long before the season started, because I study the cycles and trends of the NFL, and it helps me predict future outcomes. And no, I'm not right 100% of the time. No one is. It is impossible to be. This is a game of probability. We are just trying to predict the future here, and no one is right 100% of the time. I'm definitely over time this week, but that is the game theory portion of the show. Which fantasy analyst should I listen to? And the answer is multiple. As many as you can. You can't get dead set on one fantasy analyst because they are not going to be accurate 100% of the time. I think the most accurate way for you as just the average fantasy football player to be successful is to listen to as many analysts as you can and use a culmination, an average, a meridian, a median between all of these analysts that you can possibly fit into your day, and try to come up with your own decision based on as many takes and opinions as possible. That's probably the best way for you guys to win this season. I hope you're in your championship and seasons going forward. Just take in as much information as possible and you will become successful at fantasy football. That's it for this week. Guys, please subscribe to the Beyond Football channel. I am Smokey Rameriz, your fantasy football pro. I'll see you next week. Deuces.